Good morning, friends. Welcome to worship here at Holland UCC. It is so great to have you with us. And this morning we celebrate turning 4 years old. I can't decide if it's happy birthday or happy anniversary, but either way, Holland UCC is 4 years old, and we're going to celebrate that today. We're glad that you're with us this morning, whether this is your first time, whether you've been around here for a long time or somewhere in between. It's a delight to have you with us. We are a community of justice, peace, and affirmation. We believe that whatever your age, whatever your orientation, gender identity, skin color, whatever it is that you believe or don't believe, you are a beloved child of God, and you are welcome in this space. This morning we'll explore the story of Jesus and Zacchaeus, and we'll wrestle together with the power of story and how the stories that we tell ourselves have a big impact on our lives, how we see ourselves, and how we live in the world. Our call to worship this morning is one that we used at our very first service, at our kickoff service, so that makes it kind of meaningful to use it again 4 years later today. Come, come, whoever you are, do you hear that voice calling you, calling us? That voice which calls us together here today in this virtual space made holy by our presence and by the sacred breath we share in our singing, our speaking, and our silence. That voice which calls us to remember that we are not alone and we are inextricably linked to all other life, woven into a vast tapestry of existence of which we are a powerful, integral, and holy part. And just as we have been called together here today, we act as the voice, the heart, the hands of another call. The call to walk with the wanderers, sing and dance with the worshipers, proclaim the memory of those who have taken their leave, wrap the despairing and the broken in the arms of love and community, and hold the hands of all of us who have broken our vows and call us back again and again to the covenant and work of justice, humility, and steadfast faithfulness. For this we are here together today. So, my friends, come yet again. Let us worship together. We'll take a moment now, as we do every week, to pay attention to our breathing. So I invite you to sit comfortably in your seat. Allow the chair, the couch, the bed that is supporting you, allow you to rest in that and feel the firmness of it beneath you, and feeling beneath that the firmness of the foundation of the home or the building in which you are, and beneath that the foundation of the earth itself, and of course beneath that the hands of the Holy One holding us and all beings in existence. And in that, I invite you to breathe in deeply this morning. And exhale. Breathing in goodness and joy and celebration. And exhaling whatever anxiety or weight that you feel this morning. Breathing in. And breathing out. I invite you to continue in your mindful breathing as we ring this meditation bowl, which reminds us of the deep peace of God.
say I'm coming here to your church and wine and bread, raised from soil, raised from dead. You are holy, you are honest, you are present. Let the cosmos praise you, Lord. Hallelujah. 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 Ready, Santa, ready, Dios, por tu la eternidad te reto, muy cerca estás, de tu mano es Señor, te alabamos hoy aquí, te adoramos con fervor, a tu iglesia, vino y pan. Eres santo, eres Dios, te sentimos, la creación te veneró. Let the cosmos praise you, Lord. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Jill and David. Lovely to have your voices with us in worship this morning. Our litany today, which you can follow along with in the order of worship if you have it, is a litany of celebration and thanks. We give thanks, O Holy One, that what began as a whisper, an idea, a dream, has become so much more.
That where 2 or 3 have gathered with a longing for community, for welcome, and for justice, that you have met us there.
We give thanks that in this place we have experienced nurture, personal spiritual growth, inspirational worship, and a mutually caring community.
We have longed for a place that embraces human diversity by welcoming individuals and families of all kinds and joins with a larger community to promote love, justice, and service to society.
We have found that each person who walks through our doors is a source of wonder and holiness.
For those who joined us early on, and for those who have only joined us more recently online, we give thanks.
For those who have set up chairs, scheduled volunteers, done sound checks, and set up snacks, we give thanks.
For those who have led worship, taught our children, and worked behind the scenes, we give thanks.
For wise voices who have helped us discover more of who you are, we give thanks.
For those who through their vulnerability have helped us find strength, we give thanks.
For the days ahead, as uncertain as they seem, give us faith.
And for the unseen path ahead, help us remember that sometimes we make the road by walking together.
Amen and namaste. Peace be with you, friends.
And also with you.
Feel free to take a moment and offer a word of peace or just a hello in the comments section. And again, if you're just joining us, welcome to worship here at Holland UCC. We are celebrating becoming 4 years old today, 4 years of community together here in Holland. And in just a moment, we'll take a look back at some of those memories of the last 4 years. Holland UCC began as a dream, with the idea that it shouldn't matter what you believe in order for you to belong. That Jesus really meant it when he told us to love our neighbors. All our neighbors are black, brown, white, gay, straight, trans, rich, poor, young, and old neighbors. That God was too big to be put in a box, and that faith, if it didn't result in change in our lives and in the world, was meaningless. Many of us who joined in the early days felt like refugees from church. Our journeys had taken us from traditional/conservative views on faith and social issues to a more expansive understanding of God and humanity. Our first worship service was held on November 6, 2016 at the Holland Area Arts Council. We had maybe 25 or 30 folks join us and some children as well. And we've been gathering since then with growing energy and many new faces, and 4 years later, we are still going strong. We've met for worship in an art gallery, in a conference room, in a former warehouse, in a shed, and in a treehouse. And of course, we've gathered in many other ways and spaces in these last 4 years. At Holland UCC, we are a faith community that's loving, supportive, socially conscious, and joyful, where people of all ages, races, backgrounds, orientations, and viewpoints are welcome. We're a group of friends among whom exploration and questions are expected, where justice is sought, spirituality is deep, and community is real. We see other faith traditions as friends and teachers. We share hurts and celebrate joys. We nurture gifts. We seek to deepen our hearts and our minds. We care for the earth as a deeply spiritual act. We are a community where sexual orientation and gender identity are causes for celebration, not condemnation. We are so glad you're here.
Out of my skin, I'm seeing oblivion. Lost in the fireworks, something about it hurts. Lost in the fireworks, something about it hurts.
time's but a thief, lost in the fireworks. Something about it hurts. Lost in the fireworks. Oh, something about it hurts. If you will let me go, I'll never let you go. If you will let me go, I'll never let you go. And it's easy, I can see it in your eyes. Oh, in your eyes. Oh, in your eyes. Oh, in your eyes.
Friends, Mark and Amy Cornelis here. We are so very grateful for 4 years of all the ways that you all have been the church listed on this t-shirt here.
We are indeed super grateful for the community that has formed, in particular for Brian and Christy and the family and all that they have brought and dedicated to the church. But the way that we've all kind of become travelers together on a journey, and it's a lot that we miss. We miss seeing everybody, but we're certainly looking forward to when we can be together again. So happy anniversary, and
Happy anniversary.
take care, everybody.
Hi, my name is Krista Anderson, and I use she, her pronouns, and I am a proud member of Holland UCC. I grew up in a UCC church, but when I moved to Holland 21 years ago, there was no UCC church. So I did find another church home, but it just never quite felt like home to me, because I didn't feel a true sense of belonging. About a little over 3 years ago, when a group I facilitate, Gender Safe, was looking for a pastor to share a message at our candlelight vigil for Transgender Day of Remembrance, we reached out to Brian Burkhoff, learning of Holland UCC, and I started attending. And from the first Sunday that I sat in the Holland Area Arts Council and soaked up the environment, the welcome feeling of belonging in this church community was so potent and powerful that I have never looked back since. And I am incredibly proud and grateful to be a part of this community where I feel like someone who belongs, and I am so grateful that we accept everyone, no matter where they are on any journey in their life, or who they are, what they look like, what they can do, can't do. So I'm just super grateful for this community, and couldn't be more proud to be a part of it.
Hi everyone, we miss you all. We're so grateful for Holland UCC and the community it's brought to us and continues to bring
Hi everyone,
to us.
love you guys, miss you guys.
Hello, Holland UCC friends. Happy anniversary. I have a quick thought to share. Just our first service at the Holland UCC was at the end of 2018 during Advent and at the kind of the peak publicity of the family separation at our southern border, and the whole world kind of felt upside down, and we were looking for something to just be constructive with, to connect with, and Brian gave a fiery sermon, that first time we visited, as he is wont to do, and rightfully so. So we kind of looked at each other and figured that this was something constructive that we could participate in, and we just appreciate the community and all that it stands for. So it's been a pleasure to know you and be a part of the group. Happy anniversary.
Hi, I'm Doug Van Doren, and we've been coming to Holland United Church of Christ since June of 2018 when I retired as pastor of Plymouth UCC in Grand Rapids. I was present when you became a United Church of Christ. It's the kind of place that I wanted to support and be supported by and be nurtured by. So we found a wonderful fellowship there, and pleased that Holland is a church that's doing what church ought to do. Thank you and congratulations on 4 years.
Hi, I'm Colleen Mahone Van Doren. Plymouth Church was my home for 40 years, and I didn't think I'd ever find anything that came close, but Holland UCC is it. The people are wonderful, warm, caring, and doing the right thing for one another and for the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi UCC friends, happy birthday. I'm so thankful for this wonderful, loving, accepting community, and I can't wait to see you all again in person someday.
Powerful stuff. Man, pretty neat to look back on some of those early days and even remember events of the past year, which of course has been quite different than any of us have had imagined that it would be. And thanks to those who had a few words to share with us. So meaningful to hear how God has moved in your life here in this community. And we want to take a moment this morning and welcome a few new members here at Holland UCC. Welcome to Corey Pierce. Corey also happens to be our treasurer, so good to have you as a member, Corey. Of course, Corey is married to Jamie, and they have 2 lovely children as well. We want to welcome Tara and Joseph Goris. Welcome to Tara and Joseph. So glad to have you with us. We also want to welcome today as a member Elizabeth Johnston. Welcome, Elizabeth. Glad to have you with us officially as a member. And then someone who joined a little bit ago but hasn't been acknowledged in this fashion. I want to welcome as well Lori Piersma. Welcome, Lori. Glad to have you as a member here at Holland UCC. And if you would like to become a member, we have a simple covenant of belonging that we ask you to affirm, and we'll make that available to you. And you can simply let us know by email or phone call or some other way, and we are happy to have you join us as a member here at Holland UCC. Well, our scripture this morning is the Holy Gospel according to Luke 19. The Holy Gospel according to Luke 19, verses 1 through 10. And incidentally, this was the scripture text the morning of our first gathering as well, back in 2016. Luke 19, verses 1 through 10. He, that is Jesus, entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost." Well, the stories that we tell ourselves matter. And in fact, it matters so much that it impacts the way that we actually see the world. And we're all experiencing this right now in our country. Leading up to the most recent election, we heard some, won't name any names, repeatedly say that voting by mail wasn't safe, it wasn't secure, and it was bound to be fraudulent. Now, we heard others, such as secretaries of state, election officials, and many elected leaders, remind us that voting by mail has actually been happening a long time in this country. It's very secure, and the cases of fraud have been minuscule, almost none, comparative to the large number of folks who have successfully voted by mail in the past. And now that we're on the other side of the election, those who heard those different stories are seeing what happened in different ways, because the story that you were told becomes part of the lens through which you see the world. And so if you trust in those involved in our election process, secretaries of state, and so on, election workers, other state and government officials who tell us that this was one of the most successfully run elections we've ever had. It was, even though we had more voting by mail than we've ever had, it all happened without a hitch, very successfully, nothing to worry about, and we can trust that the results are the actual results. And I think most Americans believe this is so, but unfortunately we're experiencing still more division, because there are others who heard that other narrative, that other story, that in fact there was going to be fraud because there was a lot of people voting by mail. And one party, maybe not their party, tended to vote more by mail, again because of that different story of trust versus distrust. And you can see the quandary that we're in. So I don't want to spend any more time there, just to say that the stories that we tell matter. They matter. And I was planning to frame this story, this encounter of Jesus and Zacchaeus, as a story about how we're all innately selfish, and that this encounter with Jesus, this salvation, as it's called, is what moves Zacchaeus from selfishness to generosity. And I was going to highlight something else as well, that selfishness is perhaps not rooted in humans being totally depraved or utterly sinful, as I was taught growing up, but perhaps that selfishness is rooted in the fact that we're genetically hardwired to preserve ourselves and propagate our species, which requires a bit of selfishness as a matter of sheer survival. I was going to do all that. Of course, you'll hear maybe where I'm going instead, but let me do some background here before we get that far. Now, I think many of us are ready to move on from the theology of total depravity or sheer human sinfulness. And for those not familiar, total depravity is a Calvinist doctrine coming out of the Reformation, that human nature is thoroughly corrupt and sinful as a result of the fall. The Heidelberg Catechism, a document written in Germany in the mid-1500s, shortly after the Reformation, is filled with questions and answers as a guide to the faith. And this was one of the documents that was central to my own faith education growing up in the church. Perhaps you're familiar with it. And one of the questions that it asks is, from where did man's, or we might say humanity's, depraved nature come from? From where did man's depraved nature come? And the answer given is from the fall and disobedience of our first parents, Adam and Eve in paradise. For there our nature became so corrupt that we are all conceived and born in sin. A familiar reading of the situation, and this is the story that many of us have been told from our youngest years at vulnerable and impressionable ages in the church, that we are born in sin and are corrupt, utterly corrupt, that we're deserving of hell, which is unfortunately comprised of eternal conscious torment. Well, the Catechism then drives the bad news deeper and asks, but are we so corrupt that we are totally unable to do any good and inclined to all evil? And the answer, the short answer, is yes. Yikes. We are so corrupt that we're totally unable to do any good and inclined to all evil. And the Catechism says, yes, in fact, that's true. Then it also goes on to say, well, with God's intervention, we can overcome this. But humans on their own, unable to do any good whatsoever. Totally sinful, totally corrupt, inclined to all evil. So let's just pause for a moment and note that these are terrible things to teach to children. I'm going to say that. And I was taught this as a child. But I think there's a better story, a better narrative. And for many of us, this theology begins to unravel because it is dependent on a literal reading of the creation story in Genesis. And we're asked to believe that eating a piece of fruit in response to a talking snake is what put all of humanity in this worst case scenario predicament. And for many of us, some critical thinking, along with scientific data about the age of the earth, the development and evolution of humanity, and so on, let alone some textual expertise, critical readings of ancient texts, how to read the Bible in its literary, cultural, geographical context, all of those things. And you begin to realize that this story, taken literally that way, doesn't really add up, which does not at all to diminish the scriptures or to say that there aren't true things for us to learn in these opening chapters of Genesis. I believe there are. And of course, the power of story lives on. And the power of story, I think, is very powerful there. And so many of us still live, don't we, with this undercurrent, right? With this underlying sense that we aren't good enough, that God isn't pleased with us, and that we're always prone to screwing up. Well, a better reading of Genesis, of that opening story, of course, is remembering that God created humanity in God's image, and God proclaimed us as very good. So at the heart of who we are created in God's image. We are, as God said, very good. That's the story that's worth remembering. And too often in doctrine of total depravity or the fall, we skip over that and we begin with humanity's sinfulness as the starting point. But it's not the starting point in the Bible, and it shouldn't be the starting point for us either. And so We are good at our core, and let me say that again because it is so important. You are good, very good, at the core of who you are. Not corrupt, not totally depraved, not prone to do only evil all the time. But of course, as one story or narrative begins to lose hold, we look for other ways, right, to understand ourselves. And some anthropologists, scientists, philosophers, and sociobiologists began to look at our development as a species from a physical, genetic, and social point of view. And the idea began to arise, and this is where I was going to go with the message, is that we are naturally selfish. So there's still something there, but that perhaps everything we do does have underlying selfish motives. But this isn't because of a theological or metaphorical fall into sin. It's because we're hardwired genetically as a matter of survival. Martin Van Doorn notes that ever since Darwin, there's been a strong tendency to interpret the theory of evolution in terms of a ruthless, selfish battle for survival. No doubt you've heard this. Richard Dawkins concludes that we are born selfish. And many economists claim or assume, right, that we'll not understand human decision-making until we realize that societies are collections of individuals pursuing their self-interest. So we're often told that human greed is good for the market. It's good for the economy. And so even though the underlying narrative may have changed for many folks on the cause of human selfishness, the agreement is still there that we are simply selfish beings and that our ultimate motive is always self-serving, no matter how different things may seem on the surface. I wonder if you agree with that. I'm wrestling through this understanding myself. It's okay to be learning. It's okay to be in process. It's okay to have questions. In this view, right, it seems fair and it maybe even seems true of our experience. But are we always motivated by self-interest? Always? Everything we do? Even the most loving, selfless acts? Our desire to help a fragile older person cross the road or cross the street, is that motivated by self-interest? Our desire to love our neighbor by wearing a mask, is that self-interest? Our desire to feed the hungry, home the houseless, and welcome the stranger, are these all ultimately selfish acts? It's kind of depressing to think so, right? It seems kind of dark to imagine that that's so. And here's the good news. In my research of this, it seems maybe that isn't the case. Maybe we can tap the brakes on humans being so entirely and irrevocably awful. Martin Van Doorn says that it's absolutely incorrect to draw from evolutionary theory that human action is, quote, really selfish or always selfish. Sociobiology, he says, has sold us a false picture of human behavior. And he goes on into details about genes and alleles, if I'm saying that right. Apologies, biologists, if I'm screwing that up. That's fancy language for gene variants. And he goes on to talk about phenotypic modification and other stuff that I couldn't follow entirely. But he notes that perhaps the clearest instance of the fallacy of this view is the belief that genetic theory shows that we all have a ruthless, burning desire to perpetuate our genes. Many people obviously have no such wish, he notes, right? Sincere celibates, for example, or dual income, no kid couples who intend to keep it that way. Surely they're not motivated by a desire to propagate their own species or themselves. And he says, in the end, evolutionary theory gives us no reason to believe that a person's reasons are all ultimately connected or concerned with genetic replication or the quote-unquote selfish gene. And he comes around to say, why do people do good? Is it because some humans might, lo and behold, actually be virtuous? Actually be good? I hope so. And I believe so. But here's the thing, and the point for us this morning. The thing that he notes along the way, even a theory that is false if it is told enough and believed to be true, can have real impact, and it can make us live as if it is true. See our opening example, right, about voting by mail and election fraud, right? Even a story that's false, if it's told enough and we begin to believe it, can seem to be true, or we can live as though it is true, almost live it into being, even though ultimately it's false. Psychologist Barry Schwartz says in his book, Why We Work, that genes are indifferent to our theories about them. But this is not true of people, of course. Theories about human nature can actually produce changes in how people behave. And what this means is that a theory that is false can become true simply by people believing it's true. And the result is that instead of good data driving out bad data and theories, bad data, or bad stories, I would say, change social practices until the data becomes good data and the theories are validated. In other words, it becomes a self-propagating or self-perpetuating theory, right? We might not be utterly sinful. We might not be utterly selfish, but when you're told your entire life repeatedly again and again that you can't help yourself, you just are selfish, you begin to believe that's true, and you begin to excuse your own selfish behavior because, well, I can't help it. I was born this way. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, God. I'm just going to live into this because that's what I've been told my entire life. And so the story or theory, even though ultimately false, can seem to be true because it's the lens through which we see the world, and we begin to live it out. And so we could imagine that Zacchaeus, see, I'm bringing it back around. I didn't get lost here in the weeds. Zacchaeus was innately selfish, we could imagine, because of his sin. That's one view. And that when Jesus says salvation has come to this house, now he can act selflessly because he's been saved from his sins. But is that what's going on? Or we could have the view that Jesus empowers him to overcome his selfish genetic makeup by showing him there's ultimately some advantageous reason for him to be, quote unquote, selfless. But underneath that, he's actually still selfish, right? We could have that view. Or is it that Jesus provides a better story, a more beautiful story, and more importantly, a story that also has the benefit of being true, and that now Zacchaeus can begin to live into his true self? Let's consider what the stories were that would have shaped Zacchaeus. He was a tax collector. And so if he was Jewish, he would be seen as a traitor to his people, a sellout to Rome, the worst kind of person. This would have made him socially outcast. It would have classified him as unclean, and so also excluded from the religious community, and hence separated him from God. He's someone that, in the prevailing mindset, you wouldn't even share a meal with, not as a good, conscientious follower of Torah. And you can imagine these stories told again and again over a lifetime have shrunk Zacchaeus. His view of himself, his view of what he could be, his view of his self-worth was all attacked. But Jesus explodes those stories, doesn't he? By singling out Zacchaeus, by going to his house, crossing the boundary of the unclean, breaking bread with a traitor, because Jesus knows those are false narratives, false stories. And the truer story is that Zacchaeus is wonderfully made in the image of God. He is a beautiful child of God, worthy of fellowship, inclusion, and belonging. And when someone sees him for who and what he is, and spends time with him and includes him and lets him know he belongs, his heart can't help but open. An expansiveness within him opens up so that Zacchaeus can't but help respond with generosity. And perhaps deep down, that's who he was all along. And so what story, friends, have you been told? What stories have you been telling yourself? That you don't fit, that you don't belong, that you aren't good enough, that you aren't smart enough, that you don't know enough, that you're not good looking enough. Now, growing up, I was kind of a shy, awkward, nerdy kid. For the record, there's nothing wrong with being nerdy. And in school, especially junior high and high school, I consistently felt that I didn't measure up. Right? I wasn't the best athlete. I had braces, pimples, didn't have the right friends. I wasn't cool. I mean, it took a long time for me to learn other things about myself, truer things about myself. But those stories were told from a young age are powerful, and they stay with us. And so what stories, if you're a parent, are you telling your child or your children? And for all of us of whatever age, what stories are you telling about yourself? It matters. It matters. It matters because we all process things through filters which make us believe things that may not in fact be true about ourselves. And these things hamper our ability to believe that we are worth it, to believe that God loves us, that our friends love us, that people respect us, look up to us, believe in us. And it's why every week at Holland UCC, we remind ourselves that whoever you love, however you identify, whatever the shade of your skin, whatever you believe or don't believe, that you are a beloved child of God and you are welcome in this community. You are welcome with us. May this, friends, be the story that also fills your heart, not only because it could change your life, but because it also happens to be true. Amen and namaste.
Show me your way, Lord. Show me your way. Your way of welcome. Show me today. Teach me and show me how I can live, and I will follow. My life I'll give. Show us your way, Lord. Show us your way. Your way of loving. Show us today. Teach us and show us how we can live, and we will join you. Our lives will give. Teach us and show us how we can live, and we will join you. Our lives will give.
Thank you, Becky and Clara. Lovely to have your voices with us in worship this morning. At this time, we give of our offerings, and if you would like to donate this morning, you can give by the Givelify app. That's Givelify. Sort of funky. You can download that, search for Holland UCC or Holland United Church of Christ, or you can go to our website, hollanducc.org/donate, and give in that way. And I just wanted to highlight a few of the things we've been able to support as a community because of your generosity. We have supported the work of Community Action House with some substantial financial donations. We've donated to the Latino Racial Justice Circle. We've supported Out on the Lakeshore. We've supported a pastor and his family in Colombia, who Ryan and Katie got to know during their time there. We've supported a family in Zimbabwe and have donated to the New York Times Neediest Cases Fund, among other things. And the donations that you give help us continue to be a place of welcome, of justice and peace here in the Holland area and beyond. And so thank you for your generosity. And out of God's generosity, we give, asking that God would use these gifts and us to turn the world upside down with love. Now, because we are not live this morning, I'm going to give us a time of quiet, a nature scene, maybe some soft music. And during this time, I invite you to share whatever concerns are on your heart, things happening in your life or in our broader world, whatever joys that you would like to celebrate this morning. Feel free to share those in the comments section, and we'll have, of course, the opportunity to respond to one another and to hold these things for our world together. for anything that was not mentioned in the silence. Of course, so much that's going on in our world, and thanks for all who are able to share concerns and joys that are happening for you. Whatever you are holding on to, I invite you at this time to lift that up to God in the silence. A few announcements today. Reminder, no coffee time today because today is our annual congregational meeting. That's happening shortly after this service, around 11. Please join us. There is a Zoom link that is in our Facebook group, Friends of Holland UCC Facebook group. It was also sent out in the weekly email. It happens also to be the link that we use for our coffee Zoom. So if you find the old coffee link, that works too. And we'll have the opportunity in our congregational meeting to review a little bit of what's happening here at Holland UCC. Consider our worshiping. How long are we going to stay virtual? We'll talk about some of that. We'll have the chance to answer questions. And we'll also review the proposed budget for the year ahead and have a chance to vote on and approve that, and a few other things. So it shouldn't take too long. We'd really love you to join us for that, especially if you're new and you have some questions or just want to hear more. Please join us. That's a great chance to connect in. And of course, if you've been here a long time, we'd love to have your voice and presence with us in our congregational meeting shortly after worship this morning. Also today, our new book study kicks off, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in an Age of Colorblindness by Michelle Alexander, a fantastic book. I know some folks from the Justice Action team are joining. All are welcome to join. Today at 1 via Zoom is the first meeting of this book study, and it's okay if you haven't started reading yet. Some folks read the introduction, but feel free to join. Really an important issue, really a must read, and we'd love to have you there. Pub Theology groups happening as usual. Monday, 7 o'clock via Zoom. Wednesday, Pub Theology meeting, 7 o'clock via Zoom. Stay tuned for those Zoom links. Those both have their own Facebook pages, by the way. So you can look up Pub Theology Holland, or you can look up Wednesday Pub Theology. Those are both Facebook pages to like and follow, and you always get the latest for joining. And then Tuesday, 7:30, right here on Facebook Live, our contemplative prayer time. Again, many thanks to Ryan, who has continued to be faithful and providing that for us. And I want to take a moment to say thanks to Andy Basarde, who also has led a number of those sessions. Andy is taking a call at a church in Byron Center, and so he won't be available to be with us for those Tuesday evenings anymore. But thank you, Andy, and God's blessings in your new call to your new community there in Byron Center. A reminder, Holiday Challenge. We're collecting boxes of food for Community Action House's Hunger-Free Thanksgiving. There are details in the weekly email also posted if you scroll down in the Friends of Holland UCC Facebook group. Thanks to Judy Vanderswag for issuing this challenge. Let's do 50 boxes or more as a community. Feel free to post a photo of your box or boxes. And friends, of course, let's continue to heed the wisdom from local and national health officials. And let's continue to hold each other in prayer, practice kindness, and lean into love. And today we have a special treat. One of the ways that we ended every service in person was to sing our doxology, and we dug out an old version from the archives, and so we get to hear ourselves singing the doxology. I invite you to sing along from home if you like. Here we go. Come thou from whom all blessings flow, wake us to see more than we know. Help us claim all our gifts and power. Fill us with grace that we may flower. wow, it just fills me up to hear that again. Makes me miss our in-person gatherings. Of course, I miss all of you. We've been able to stay in touch through online means and seeing each other outdoors, socially distanced and so on. But we, of course, miss our in-person worship gatherings. And well, I'm just grateful that we have this virtual opportunity to stay connected with each other each week. And we want to continue, of course, to be smart. So we'll continue in this fashion as the occasion requires. Friends, it's been a delight to celebrate 4 years together with you this morning. And now as you go, may the peace of Christ go with you wherever he may send you. May he guide you through the wilderness and protect you through the storm. May he bring you home rejoicing at the wonders he has shown you. May he bring you home rejoicing once again into our doors. Amen. And go in peace.